So many points in this book where I was just like, I never want it to end. I was reading this book and I was like, I never want to leave Maple Hills, not just because it's the last book in the Maple Hills trilogy, but because I didn't want to leave Halle and Henry behind. Hey there, it's Bear, and today we are talking about Daydream by Hannah Grace. There's a responsibility that comes with being the child that is an extension of the parenting unit. Never be the one to rock the boat. You are the anchor that keeps everyone in place. There's an unspoken requirement never to have problems you can't resolve yourself quietly, and it's a condition I've never failed to meet until now. Hannah Grace, representing all the eldest daughters all around the world, going as far as to write the dedication. For all the eldest daughters in my life, I see you, I appreciate you, and most important, I love you for who you are and not for what you do for everyone else. Oh my god, this book was such a refreshing read. For my sister, because I couldn't write 125,000 words about Halle without mentioning the eldest daughter in my family, thank you for shouldering all the weight so that I didn't have to. I swear I'll make it up to you. So Hannah Grace isn't even the eldest daughter, but she wrote the eldest daughter trope so well. I've never felt more represented in a book, to be honest. Halle is a Taylor Swift girly. This is the folklore Taylor Swift sweater, and you can tell because of the stars on the elbows. Like, the cover artist for these books, Lenny Kaufman, brings these characters to life as well. Like, this is Icebreaker, like that is Nate and Stacy. Yes, I know the audiobook says Stacy. I refuse. Anastasia, the nickname should be Stacy. And Wildfire, Aurora and Russ, like the covers just bring these characters to life. And Halle and Henry were no exception as well. Oh my god, when this cover got revealed, I did squeal a little bit because I've been waiting for Henry's turn. Henry's always been my favorite character in the Maple Hill series. He's just so soft and gentle, and he's just got that energy and vibe and quality of like a nice guy who's actually a nice guy because he doesn't actually have to specify that he's a nice guy. You know those guys? Starts with a letter from the author, and she talks about how she wants to specify very early on that Henry is not going to get an official diagnosis. She's not going to put a name to the way he presents, and that's going to upset some people because they want, like, some people want representation that's very overt, and this is very covert representation. And she says, I know he's neurodivergent coded, I've based him off myself. But I want to read you this part where she says, it doesn't make anyone, their wants or their needs less valid to not have a medical diagnosis. Henry and his actions have always been loosely based on my own, and it's taken 30 years to receive my autism ADHD diagnosis, something I did not have when I started writing Henry. When I was 20, like Henry, frustrated and upset because it felt like my brain just would not work properly and I was suffocating, at no point did anybody think it could be something more than the anxiety and depression I was diagnosed with. I've been very honest that this book was difficult for me to write, and I wanted to get it right for you all, and most importantly, I wanted to get it right for Henry. I 100% agree with her statement, like not having a diagnosis doesn't make your presentation any less valid, and I do think that she was right in not putting a name to his presentation, because it's my biggest ick when authors name drop a diagnosis and then the presentation actually doesn't meet the diagnostic criteria for the diagnoses. And obviously with Hannah basing Henry off of her own experiences, there's a bit different there. But I see it time and time again, not just in books, but in film as well, where a diagnosis will be name dropped and then the presentation just doesn't match that diagnosis. And that is a problem because it feeds misinformation, especially when the narrative that's being told is a negative, stigmatizing, villainizing presentation. As someone who has DID and bipolar, yes, it makes me upset. So I do love that she chose not to name drop a diagnosis for Henry. If I had to put a name to it, it would be autism ADHD. That's the way he presents in the book through his actions and words. However, I do want to point out that while she's correct in saying your diagnosis doesn't make you any less valid, I do think there should be clarification that if you can get a diagnosis, you should. Not everywhere around the world, like obviously it costs money, especially like if you're in America, like your healthcare system's pretty fucked. But here in Australia, we have supports for people who are autistic and have ADHD, and we have something called the NDIS. And no, it's not perfect. We are an NDIS participant and it's shitty sometimes, but it's like if you can get a diagnosis, it is worth it in this country because you will also get extra supports. So you're not any less valid, but you can get more supports with a clinical diagnosis. So I just wanted to like specify that. I think it's important. I think that people should know that they have options. This isn't just one of my 5-star reads, and it's not just my favorite Hannah Grace book. It is up there in probably my top 10 books of all time. We've been reading some of the reviews for this book, and it's a little bit jarring that people aren't perceiving this book the way that we perceive it. And I understand that not everyone thinks the same, but how can you not see the romance and the chemistry in this book? And I've come to the conclusion it's because neurotypical people don't understand that neurodivergent people have their own love languages, and Henry is neurodivergent. He has his own love languages, and Halle has a younger sibling who's ADHD, so she automatically adjusts, she code switches to be more accommodating for Henry. And it was just such a beautiful love story, and I think they have the most chemistry out of any of the other couples in the series. Like they actually have the most solid foundation and the most solid relationship. And I saw a review and it was just like, all they do is talk. And I was like, no. What they're doing is they're info dumping, which is a neurodivergent love language. I tell you everything about my special interests. You tell me everything about your special interests. And it's like, oh, they're having a conversation, but they're having like multiple conversations at once, and like they're not listening to each other. And I'm like, that is a neurodivergent love language, is keeping multiple tabs open and having multiple conversations at the same time. That's one of our love languages. It's just yapping to our partner. Just sit down, let me just talk at you, especially about books. Let me just talk at you, and I just need you to just like smile and nod and be like, that's nice. Like I don't need participation in the conversation. I just need you to facilitate a space where I can just yap. Other neurodivergent love languages are deep pressure, penguin pebbling. So we also penguin pebble a lot. It's like getting little trinkets and giving them as gifts, but like really like obscure things like rocks. Oh my gosh. I love giving rocks to people. Like I saw a shiny rock and it reminded me of you. Here, have a shiny rock. It's what penguins do. So neurodivergent people do that as well with trinkets. The other two are support swapping and parallel play. Love parallel play as well. Parallel play is the act of both of you sitting in the same space, but not talking. So I could be sitting in my beanbag reading, and my partner could be sitting in their beanbag playing Switch, and we're not talking to each other, but it's quality time. Parallel play is also good for if you have like a task, like if I have to do the dishes, but I can't, I'm like, there's a mental block, like I can't do the dishes. If my partner's sitting in the room with me, suddenly I could do it. If I need to clean my studio and I can't do it and my partner walks in, I'll just start cleaning automatically because I'm like, oh, now I can do this task because someone is in the space and I can actually progress with that task. So Halle and Henry do a lot of that. They have a lot of neurodivergent subtext communication. Like it was so good. And obviously it was good because Hannah Grace is neurodivergent as well. and representation. Oh, it made me so happy. It made me so happy. And it wasn't just the neurodivergent representation. It was also the fact that Halle is the eldest daughter. She is the eldest daughter slash family manager slash, like, she has to be the perfect non-problematic child. And especially because her sibling has ADHD and has high support needs, she is what is known as a glass box child. Halle's needs get overlooked because she has siblings who have higher support needs. And that's not the siblings' fault. That's the parents' inability to manage and facilitate equal amount of time and supporting Halle's needs as well. So Halle, from the book, it looks like she had to grow up a lot faster than she needed to. She has an older brother. He's pretty useless in terms of like being support. He acts out a lot, and she's kind of just the glue that holds the family together. And then obviously when she starts dating Henry and she starts being like, actually, I can't do that because I've already made plans. And everyone's just like, but you never had plans. Like, what do you mean? And because the amount of times I would have things scheduled for me and I'm like, when did you ask? I have a life. I have things to do too. Like, you can't just plan things and not tell me, because I'm not just going to be a doormat and lie down. So that's Halle's whole arc, is learning how to stand up for herself, learning how to be her own person, learning how to let her siblings and her parents make mistakes and then learn how to fix them themselves, so she doesn't have to step in. Henry's whole arc in this book is that he's just been made captain of the college's ice hockey team because Nate from Icebreaker, the first book, has graduated and moved on. And so he's wrestling with the fact that he doesn't want to be captain. He likes the idea of being captain, and everyone says, oh, you'd be such a great captain. Like, Nate put him up for the job. And so everyone's telling him that, like, this is what he's meant to be doing, but he doesn't want to be doing that. He doesn't want to be managing other people because it stresses him out. He gets overstimulated, and going through high school and then college, he's probably quite academically burnt out as well. And I think he just wants to play hockey for the sake of playing hockey, and he's kind of just giving burnout vibes. In the start of this book, he's just like, I've been failing at these subjects, like I'm not doing well. And that's where Halle comes in. She comes in as his tutor because she understands that he learns in a different way. So she'll take his textbooks and she will highlight the important things, because it's what she does for her sibling. And she'll just highlight all of the important parts so that Henry can actually read and focus and take that key information and then do the assignment himself. So it's not like she's like writing it for him. She's just giving him the accessibility tools that he needs. When we were at university, because we were registered with disability services, part of that is our lecturers would highlight the key information that we needed to retain, especially having DID, which is amnesic in its nature. We would get the professors to record the lectures and then clip the important parts, or just write down the key notes and give them to us. Also getting extra time in exams. We get 20 extra minutes in case we started dissociating during an exam. So, it's another reason to get a diagnosis in this country. Having a clinical diagnosis does get you accommodations. And I think that Halle is such a sweetheart, and she just clocks it immediately. And she does a thing where she's recognized that he has ADHD/autism. And she's gone, yeah, my sibling has this, and this is what helps with this particular presentation. Is that okay for me to do? And he's just like, yeah, wow, this is really helping. Because you can't come out and just tell someone that they have a disorder because that will wreck your friendship. Another thing she does is that she notices that he gets really overwhelmed by like loud sounds, and so they're at a club for an after party for a match, and he's like, I just want to go home, like I am so overwhelmed. And she gets him little loop plugs, which are the plugs that go in your ear and then like bring all the decibels down so it's less overstimulating. That was really cute too, and that feeds into the neurodivergent love language of support swapping. And it's just, this whole book made me so happy. The representation, her being plus size, but like it's mentioned so subtly, like her being like, oh, I have nothing to wear. And then the friend being like, oh, well, my roommate has some clothes and you're about the same size. And her being like, I've run into this before. People often say, oh, you're like the same size, and then we're just like completely different. She's like, oh, okay, what's the friend's name? Looks at the Instagram, looks through the Instagram and goes, okay, safe. But then other than that, it's like not mentioned. Her self-consciousness is not about her weight. It's about whether or not she's good enough as a person on her own. So it's more like attachment based. But oh my God, this love story just, it gave me so much joy. Like if I had read this book as a teenager, it would have been my favorite book. It just makes you feel part of the world. And again, more representation. Henry has lesbian moms who are just iconic as well, and they're like so warm, and they've raised him so well because like he's just like, oh, you're struggling, let me give you a foot massage. And she's like, oh no, like if I knew you were gonna touch my feet, I would have like shaved my legs. And he was like, Halle, I'm not surprised to see hair growing out of skin where hair grows. Like I understand that you are a human and you have body hair. Like that's not going to deter me in any way, shape or form. She's also a virgin, and being in college is like self-conscious of that as well, just in the fact that she's confident in her decision to wait until she trusts the right person. Like she's not waiting till marriage, she's waiting until she finds someone who's going to be communicating throughout the whole process so that she feels comfortable. And her ex-boyfriend was very pushy. And that's how this book starts. This book starts with her ex, Will, breaking up with her and basically being like, I don't think we're a good match. We've been together like childhood friends to lovers. Like we've been together a while now. You still won't fuck me. Like, what have I done wrong? And she's like, you don't think we're a good fit? Okay, bye. And he's like, aren't you gonna fight for me? Like, what do you mean? You just don't love me? And she's just like, no. And he's like shocked. And he's like, wait, you really don't love me? And she's like, I don't think I've ever loved anyone. She's a writer, so she's obviously like a little bit delulu when it comes to romance, like all writers are. Like most of us are hopeless romantics. And she's like, I'm just waiting for like the spark, the romance, the thing that books and movies talk about. And Will's like, okay, so that's not me. So they break up, and she's gotten a new job at the bookstore, and Henry's there. And he sees her and he's eating the cookies, and she's like, oh, I baked those cookies. And it's just, there's just so many points in this book where I was just like, I never want it to end. I was reading this book and I was like, I never want to leave Maple Hills, not just because it's the last book in the Maple Hills trilogy, but because I didn't want to leave Halle and Henry behind. They're just, I wanna be in this world, and I wanna be their friends. At the end, when Halle's mum corners her and is just like, I hardly even recognize you anymore. Are you changing over a boy? what? You're not gonna get back together with Will? What? It's like, who did I raise you to be? What will Will's parents think? They're gonna think that you're flaky and that our family is like hoo-ha. And she's just like, you know what? I'm glad that I don't remind you of the daughter that you knew, because that version of me was miserable. Miserable. That version of me couldn't set boundaries, was lonely, didn't know what it was like to be loved, and I just need time and space from you, and I need you to actually be a parent and focus on your kids so that I can have a life with my new boyfriend who I love. It's the first time she said it, and like he overhears because he's in the locker room, and it just broke my heart a little bit, but it was so cathartic that I did cry. This book made me cry a bit. Actually, quite a few times I cried. I teared up because I was just like, I felt so seen and represented by both of them. I am like the love child of these two. They are the perfect, like, I'm the perfect mix, like 50-50, split down the middle. These are my parents. Henry also has avoidant attachment, where he will shut down or just remove himself from a situation. Again, felt very represented. At the end, when she's just like, I love him, and he overhears her saying that to her mum, and then her mum leaves, and then they have a conversation, and he's like, I am quitting as captain. I am not in a good space, and I need to go home and be alone, and it's not going to be a 24-hour thing. It could take days, it could be weeks, it could be months. I'm not good, and I need to work on myself and get out of whatever is happening in this vortex and then come back to you. And she's like, okay, I'll wait. He goes home, he shuts down, he just lies on his bed, and he just lies there, and he just is overtaken by the void mood. I've also got avoidant attachment, and you know, I'm working on it. We're trying to work on building more secure attachment, but our default is avoidant. We do not talk to people. We unfollow people. We put ourselves in a hole to process before we re-emerge. It's part of the reason why we chose the name Bear when we legally changed our name, is because we would go through hibernation periods and totally withdrawal and like disappear and then reappear like 6 months to a year later. And you know, to the point where people would be like messaging and be like, have you died? It's like, no, but also don't perceive or talk to me, because my brain moves so slowly, and Henry is the same way. He's overwhelmed by the captaincy, he's overwhelmed by academia, he's overwhelmed with Halle, and he's overwhelmed with Will, who punches him in the face, and it's just it's just too much, and he needs to sort his own shit out because no one's going to sort it out for him. I appreciate that he told Halle, because you know, it took me 25 years before I was able to verbalize like, I need to be alone now, because before I would not verbalize it and just go into the void. But he is at a point where he can verbalize it. So love that for Halle. Halle waits. Halle cooks cookies. She's keeping herself busy. She's finishing her manuscript because there's a competition that she enters at the end. And once it's been like, I think it's a month that passes, and she still hasn't really heard from him. She's kind of like, oh, I hope he's okay. He figures out all of his shit, steps down from the captaincy, and then he goes, okay, what can I do to show Halle that I've been thinking of her while I've been working out my own stuff? And he does the audiobook for her manuscript. So he contacts one of her friends, gets the manuscript, and then does the audiobook for it, and then gives it to her at the end in a manila folder. And like, he's at her house like weeks later, and she's like poking him, and she's like, are you real? Like, and is this a hallucination? Have I lost my mind with end of year exams? And he's like, no, it's me. I know that you're going away with your family, but I have something for you. And he gives her the manila folder, and she's like, that's really cryptic, Henry. And he's like, just wanted to see you, wanted to give it to you before you go away, and then we can talk about it when you get back. She opens the manila folder. She's at the airport. He listens to the audiobook. He writes her author description that goes on the back of the book, and it says something about her boyfriend. And she's like, I don't have a boyfriend. She goes to his house, and he's like, what's wrong? And she's like, there was a mistake. And he was like, what mistake? And she was like, it says I have a boyfriend, Henry, but as far as I'm aware, no one's asked me to be their girlfriend. Again, that's another moment where I cried. When people say that they don't get the chemistry, that they're really disappointed because they thought Henry would be like, I guess, more aggressive in terms of his pursuit of Halle, or like in terms of like their sex life. He's very artistic. He paints, and he's very slow and sensual, and they cover themselves in body paint and then fuck on a canvas. Like, he's very artsy. He's just very artsy and very gentle. And I think a lot of people were just like, that's not my Henry. That's not how I like thought that he was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be like I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people who are dragging this book don't understand these characters and why they're doing what they're doing, because they're not understanding that neurodivergent people have different ways of showing love and receiving love. And that's what I wanted to talk about. My main point of this video is just to really highlight that neurodivergent people experience love differently, and it's not boring, and it's not lackluster, and it's not like dry. Like, and it's not like we have any less chemistry than anyone else. Not everyone needs to just like be leaping all over each other every like 2 or 3 chapters. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. Love banging every second chapter, but like, that doesn't make Halle and Henry any less valid just because they're not sleeping together until about like that's left remaining. But yeah, no, I love this book. I love this book so much, and I am so sad that the Maple Hills trilogy is over, but I can't wait to see what Hannah Grace writes next. What a finale. If I had to rank the books, it would be this one, then Icebreaker, then Wildfire, only because I never finished Wildfire. It was too much for me, just in terms of like personal triggers, could not get through it. If you like book content like this, subscribe below.